What's going on to all my Barry blockheads out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my final breakdown, review, and recap of the Season 3 finale of Barry, Episode 8, titled Starting Now. An episode in which we see Gene gives the best performance of his career. We see Sally lets her rage get the best of her. Will Cristobal ever be the same? And we see Barry's past finally catches up to him. We'll be discussing that and so much more in today's breakdown spoiler review. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed this breakdown, well, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel and love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live streams, well, come and join the community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And if you all enjoyed this spoiler breakdown review of Barry Season 3 finale, well, make sure you're giving the video a thumbs up and also sharing it. But more importantly, sharing your thoughts, everything that you thought about this finale, pros, cons, your thoughts on the season overall. Which out of the three is your favorite? Which finale is your favorite? And also, what's your favorite episode of this new season? And of course, share your thoughts, theories, and predictions of what you all hope to see in Season 4. Let's have those discussions in the comments. Before we get into today's spoiler breakdown, just want to take the time to thank every single one of you all that tuned in to last night's live stream watch party, the finale. I had so much fun interacting with you all. We had so many great discussions. You saw my live reactions to all the shocking moments of this finale, and I just wanted to thank you all for tuning in. If you didn't watch it, you can watch the replay. I'll leave it in the description of this video. And then also, I want to take the time to really thank you all for being on this journey with me these last 8 weeks, watching these reviews, sharing them, commenting. You know, we all love Barry. We all know that it doesn't get the recognition critically, you know, it wins awards, but as far as like the popularity, I think this show should be one of the most talked about shows on TV. But hey, it is what it is. We have our Barry blockhead community, and I thank every single one of you all for being a part of this community and supporting these reviews. And speaking of review, we have one more to talk about, and that's this finale. Let's get into the breakdown. Full spoilers ahead as we open the episode with Barry on his beach of death as he sees both Gene and Sally there and wakes up from this nightmare, and he leaves the hospital. So let's go back and talk about that scene. We can understand why Sally is there because she does something later in this episode that definitely kind of puts her on this dark path that Barry didn't want her on. But then the question at hand is, why is Gene on this beach? Is this foreshadowing for what happens later in this episode, him loving someone and yet again someone that he loves kind of betraying him? Or is that foreshadowing for maybe Gene come Season 4 taking a life or having his life taken from him by Barry? We'll talk about that in this video. But getting back into Barry here as he goes back to Nick's and Jermaine's place only to find Sally there waiting for him, and she wants him to scare Natalie as her path to darkness has begun. Now, 2 weeks in a row, we open the show with our normal title card of Barry, but no music, no change for the world theme song. That's how I knew this is going to be a very intense episode. Let's get back into the breakdown here as let's see what's going on with Gene as he gets a call, and we see him before the call comes in taking this meeting with his manager, and Annie's there, and the call comes in from Jim, who wants him to meet at his house in 17 minutes. We're going to talk about Gene here in a second, but let's talk about the scene we get with Fuches, the only scene that we get with the character, aka the Raven, who is still under interrogation, and this is the last time we see him this season as he's being processed in jail on his way to prison. I think it's safe to say that maybe Fuches is going to have a partner bunking up with him by the end of this episode. But before we get back into the breakdown, I'm not going to lie, I've seen the episode twice now. I wish we would have gotten more of Fuches in this episode. Now, of course, we have so much to break down, so many amazing scenes, but I do wish there was maybe one or two more scenes showing us Fuches in prison, seeing him being processed more, seeing where things are kind of headed for him a little bit more distinctively in this Season 4, but I wanted more of them. But let me know what you all thought of Fuches, and again, do you all predict that he's going to be bunking up with Barry come next season? Let's talk about that in the comments. But getting back into Gene and Jim as he wants to show him something in his garage. Jim uses his skills to get the person to do whatever he wants. In this case, it's Gene as he begins to ask him, "Do you love my daughter? Her name was Janice Moss, Detective Moss." And we see Gene repeats and says, "Yes, that is her. I did love her." Moving to him questioning, "Do you love Barry Berkman?" "No, I don't love Barry Berkman." And this is where things become tense. And I want you all to notice this is one of 4 scenes in a row, and each scene gets more intense. But let's talk about the intensity going on here as Jim is now face to face with Gene, and he asks him, "Did Barry love my daughter?" "No," was Gene's response. "Why are you protecting Barry?" As we see Gene ultimately breaks down and starts to cry. And we are, or I should say, at least I am to assume, it was in that moment that Jim broke Gene, and in doing so, Gene gave him all the information he needed in regards to who killed his daughter, setting up this plan that we're going to talk about at the end of this review. Now, when we watched it live, I know some people were mentioning that they think that Gene, this was always his plan to kind of, I mean, he obviously wanted to get payback with Barry, and he's been kind of put on this facade, you know, "Thank you, Barry. I appreciate you, Barry. Thank you for these opportunities, Barry." And we secretly knew that he wanted to just wait for his opportunity. So I think it wasn't always planned for him to get Barry in this matter, but I think it was in this moment in the garage. We know Jim told us last week that his job in Nam was to convince people to do whatever he wants, in the sense of he had a general or a guard take their own life by simply using his words. So we know those words are very powerful enough to break Gene and have Gene tell him the truth. So, like I said, that's one of 4 straight intense scenes. Let's break down the next one here as we check in back with Barry and his master plan that was conceived to take down Natalie by Sally. Barry tells her he knows where he's going to go when he's going to die. He doesn't want to see her in the same place. But they have a very special visitor here as we cut to one of the most intense scenes of this entire show. Shane from the biker gang, who we met in episode 5, knocks Barry out with a one-hitter quitter, and we see he moves his attention to Sally, again giving us one of the most intense scenes that we have seen in this entire show, as Sally has to fend for herself as she is being literally choked to death. Her final breaths are here, but she manages to stab Shane in the face, and it ends up poking him from the back of the eye. Listen, I'm a horror fan every day of the week, but there are certain things when people have things broken, but more particularly when you mess with eyes, it grosses the hell out of me. And the fact that that butter knife or whatever that sharp bread knife was literally poking his eye from the inside. Oh my goodness. The look too, the blood rich. Oh my, let's talk about the scene before I throw up here. Getting back into it, that is not the last of Sally's revenge as she takes a baseball bat and begins to beat Shane to death. But it is important to note that Sally just isn't reacting to, this is self-defense, but this is Sally's moment of rage. This is Sally beating up Sam. This is Sally beating up Hollywood. This is Sally beating up Natalie. This is her beating up Barry. This is her beating up that algorithm. All at that very point she broke. She let her rage get the best of her. She went down that path that was set in last week's episode when she descended into darkness. Where here is what darkness looks like as we see the moment that I thought was just so brilliant in this scene as Barry finally wakes up for getting knocked out, seeing his dream, or should I say nightmare, come true as she has beaten Shane to death, and we see the blood on her face, and we see Barry tells her, "Say it was me, say it was Barry," and we see her say all that, and they say, go ahead and go. So that is one of another example of Barry covering for someone, right? The 2 people that he loves in this world right now, at least that we know of, Sally being one of them, Gene being another one, and ultimately they leave Barry out for the cold, as we'll talk a little bit about later. But again, wow, I know a lot of you all aren't the biggest Sally's fans, and I can understand the criticism for the character, not the actors. I know a lot of us can admit the actress is phenomenal, especially in this scene. The brilliance of Bill Hader in this episode, which we'll talk about when I do all my final recap and breakdown and everything that this show does so beautifully, but the direction of how they staged the scene, her going into that booth and them closing the door, and just the visual, her beating all the anger out. We didn't hear it because it's just the brilliance of this show. We don't have to see the physicality and see the brutality, but we can, we know what she's doing to him. And then when Barry wakes up, looks at her, like I said, his dream that he had early in the episode has become this nightmare that has come true, and she has now got her first victim. Is that her only victim, or will she go and do more evil deeds moving forward, especially going back to Missouri? So What a brilliant scene. Let me know what you all thought of it. But again, that's number 2 of intensity scenes of this episode. We got a third one coming up here. Let's break it down. As we check in what's going on with NoHo Hank and his escape plan to save Cristobal, we see Hank's guys manages to get themselves out of the handcuffs as the guards arrive, which, as my subtitle said on HBO, it says ferocious animal. I mean, we talked about it last night. It was either a tiger, a lion, or a bear, or something else entirely. Maybe it was a big-ass dog, which I don't think it was. It was one of those 3. Let's talk about this here as this vicious animal eats Hank's men alive. Hank now must fight for his life, very similarly to what Sally had to do. I love, again, back-to-back moments here. And even going back to Gene, they have to save their lives. Gene wants to save his career. We see Sally has to fight, literally fight for her life. And now we're seeing Hank doing the same thing. The genius of this show, let's get back into it here as he is fighting for his life, and this again is a life or death situation, which I think the actual title of this episode could have simply been called Life or Death. Let's get back to NoHo Hank here as he gives it his all. He manages to break out of his handcuffs. He takes out one of the guards, takes their gun, he kills the animal, and now it is time to save Cristobal. We see Hank, he goes upstairs, he walks through the house, he sees a family portrait. Might be some foreshadowing for season 4. I don't think Cristobal's son and his daughter are going to be too happy that daddy has killed their granddad and now their mom. Vengeance will be coming. Let's get back into it here as we see Elena is shocking her husband and she has this man dancing at the same time. And I would assume in this scene, what do they call it? Like shock therapy. But she's like literally trying to give her husband a choice. Do you want me or do you want this lifestyle? Do you want to have Hank? Do you want to be with men? And I thought that scene was just so, and by the way too, they didn't have like the translation of what she was saying in Spanish, but I assume, like I said, I assumed that she was giving him an option. Do you want me, our life, our kids, all the stuff we have, or do you want to be with Hank? We don't see him make the decision, but we do see before she gives him that choice, she shocked him. Like, I think Cristobal and his right state of mind is no longer it. I think he's like going to be half in, half out. He's damaged. I think he has permanent brain damage, but in comes the rescuer as we see Hank comes in. He shoots her in the head. He kills the dancing man. He hugs Cristobal, and you can see this moment of comfort. But again, looking at Cristobal, it almost seems like he knew, like he felt the comfort, he felt the love, he felt rescued, but at the same time, he's not speaking, he's not talking, he's not having that. I mean, again, he's just witnessed his wife just tried to kill him and have shock therapy in front of him, so there's a lot of trauma going on, and also he could just probably see his whole life, his whole empire, his whole family just crumbling down right in front of him. So there is some shock to understand why he can't talk. But I think that shock is due to what his wife, or I should say his dead wife now, has done to him. So it's in this moment that we see Cristobal is somewhat understanding what's going on, but not fully understanding it. But as Hank's hugging him, we see that face that Hank gives, like kind of knowing, number one, as the episode is titled, starting now, this is the start of the rest of their lives, which I think, and we'll talk about it later, I think they're going to be on the run for the rest of their lives. I think this is not the only time they're going to have the Bolivians coming after them. They're going to have to run for the rest of their lives, especially if my whole son and daughter of Cristobal is going to be out for blood. This is going to be a dark path that we're going to see Hank go on come season 4. But again, back to back to back. Now let's talk about the incredible moment. Let's check in on what's going on with Barry as Albert has found him, which, by the way, I don't know how Albert found him randomly in that, area, which, by the way, there's a lot of parallels. I want you all to go back. I'm going to probably put on the screen now as I'm talking, but go back to episode 1 of this very season. There's a lot of similarities in the scene with Gene and also Barry, and now parallel that to what's going on with Albert and Barry. Very similar staging and very similar thing of forgiveness that takes place in the scene. Let's break it all down here as we get this 4th scene in a row as Albert wants to know why Chris. As we see Bill Hader gives one of the best moments of this episode where he can't even speak. He starts to break down, screams out, and begins to cry. And again, go back to that callback of that scene I mentioned with Gene and Barry, and now parallel that. That's the same place. Very similar circumstance, forgiveness, redemption, all in this scene, as we see Albert ultimately lets him pass. We see Albert tells him about his daughter and how he's so thankful that Barry saved his life, and now he's giving him the same thing and allowing Barry to move on. But he tells Barry, I'm going to give you another chance, not an evil guy, and starting now, this all has to stop. Again, call back to the title and also call back to season 1, episode 8, when we saw Barry say, starting now, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to kill anyone. And he broke that promise. And unfortunately, he's going to break the promise again when it comes to Albert, giving him a second chance. Was that a good thing by Albert? Will there be ramifications of him allowing Barry to go free? We'll talk about that later. But again, I don't want to ignore the brilliance of not only Bill Hader's direction, but his performance in that moment. Again, the theme of forgiveness and redemption are highlighted beautifully in this scene. Barry thinks he's in the clear. He thinks he's free now, but his past is going to finally catch up to him. Let's talk about the end of this episode. As Barry calls Sally to tell her that everything's okay and he's taking care of it, he tells her to pick a place for them to move. As he tells her he loves her, she says the same thing. We see that she's boarding an airplane back to Missouri, Joplin, her hometown. Now, again, we'll talk about it a little bit later in the breakdown in regards to her going home to discover herself, but maybe at the same time, she's still on this blood chase, this vengeance. She's in the dark side. Maybe she's going to pay her ex-boyfriend Sam a visit and let her know what she thinks about him. We'll talk about that later. But again, let's talk about this end of season 3. Let's get into it. As Barry gets a call from Jim requesting to see Barry immediately, we see Barry calls Gene and tells him that Jim wants to take him down. He doesn't know what to do. He has a gun next to his side. As we cut to Barry flying super fast. Love the shot of him being in the car. He makes it to Jim's house. He tells Gene that he's going to make the biggest mistake of his life and that he should just go. Again, it's important to remember, Barry, in a very sick and twisted way, this is his love. This is him showing his love to the people that he does love. Covers up a murder for Sally. Now he's about to take out Jim, who's threatening his mentor, father-like figure in Gene, and now he's going to take care of him in the best way he knows. I also want you all to remember that gun that Barry has is the same prop gun that Gene had in episode 1 when he threatened to kill Barry, and we all know it was fake and didn't go through. So again, a great parallel, because I want you to remember he wasn't going to shoot Barry. It was a fake prop gun. He wasn't going to kill him. He was just using him to threaten him, all a part of an act. It's very funny that he uses that same gun to be a part of this act as he's giving the best performance of his career. Let's see how this climax wraps up. Let's break down this scene here. As we cut to Barry walking into the house, and I don't know if this is a small purposeful detail, but when we see Barry walk into Jim's house, we hear that sports commentator talk. Interception taking place in a football game. That same sound clip is at the very beginning of the title sequence of Barry, which is foreshadowing for a little bit later. But for those that watch football, an interception is when the defense takes over the offensive ball, right? They catch the ball. Now the defense has overtaken the offense. Now the other team has their chance to score. Metaphorically speaking, this is Jim intercepting Barry's plans to kill him, and also Gene being a part of it. He's taking down his plans. The defense overcomes the offense. I might be stretching there, but let's get back into the breakdown as we see Barry approaches Jim, ready to shoot him in the back of the head. Again, using that same prop gun, only to find out that the police are there and he's surrounded by them, and Barry has officially been caught. I want you all to just admire and love this scene here as we see Gene looking at Barry, and he doesn't have to say anything. He looks at him with that sense of, I caught you now, you mother, you know what. End of that moment there. Gene gets his justice, gets his vengeance, gets his revenge. He breaks the promise to Barry. He remember in episode 1, I swear I'll never tell anyone. Well, he broke that promise for the best way possible, because again, Barry is the bad guy and he got caught. But we have one more incredible scene to break down, which is the last shot of the season. Let's get into it here as we see the inside, the camera perspective of Jim's house as him and Gene acknowledge each other that they took down Barry. The police leave, and we see Jim outside of his house. And in the corner of the screen, we see a picture of Janice. But when we phase back out, you can see Jim. Yes, he took down the man that's responsible for killing his daughter. But what does that mean? He has that closure, but he's not going to get his daughter back. So I thought that scene, that shot was so beautiful. Again, redemption, justice, forgiveness, all a big theme of this season. What a fantastic way to end this amazing season here. Let's get into my discussion and topic here about overall thoughts of the season. What now for season 4? I'm going to rank my favorite episode this season, my favorite finales of the 3, my favorite season of the 3. Let's get into those topics here, starting off with what now with season 4, which I do believe season 4 will probably be here come next year, but we'll hopefully get that announcement sooner rather than later. But let's start talking about what can we expect from Sally come season 4. Now, of course, we know that she's heading back to Missouri, but is she there to just rediscover herself, or is she also there to get revenge on Sam? Also, it's important to note that while she's out of town, this whole situation with the video and Natalie, she's probably not going to be recognized for that, so she's able to kind of decompress and not have her business out there. But also, I think it's important to note that she's also running away from the situation that her boyfriend, or should I say her ex-boyfriend, was recently arrested. But the big question at hand come season 4, will Sally embrace more of her dark side? Let me know your thoughts on that. As we pivot over to what can we expect with Hank and Cristobal, do we assume that Cristobal will have permanent brain damage, and will they always be on the run for their life after taking out Fernando and also Cristobal's ex-wife? And will their kids be out for their dad to kill him? But also, speaking of killing, the Bolivians, the Chechens, will their war continue to be on? And will Hank have to get his buddy Barry out of the jail to help him take on the Bolivians? Let me know your thoughts on what you expect to see from Hank and Cristobal come season 4. Let's move on and talk about Gene. Will his career become even bigger now because he caught the man who praised him for saving his life and also turning on that same man and saving his career? Will he return to his acting masterclass with Annie come next season? And will we get new characters, new actors in this masterclass for Gene? Will he have this Barry thing haunting him forever, or will he somehow, some way come to forgive Barry and try to help him? I don't know. Let's talk about that in the comments. And of course, we can't go without talking about what to expect from Barry come season 4. First off, Chris's wife Sharon is still out there. That mother and son whose husband and their dad died, they're still out there. Albert letting Barry go, will there be any ramifications for that? Will he attempt to kill Jim on his own? And of course, we can't forget about Fuches. Will Barry and Fuches be sharing the same jail cell come season 4? And what I would love to get from those two, let's assume they're in jail, they're in the courtroom. I would love, like maybe 1 or maybe even 2 episodes, let's get a flashback. Let's see younger Barry, younger Fuches, how they came to be. Let's learn if Barry has a mother, a dad, a brother, a sister, cousins, nieces, nephews. I would love to explore more of Barry's past and how Fuches end up making him become Jason Bourne, as he calls himself. I would love to get that in season 4 with those 2 characters. And also, too, when it comes to a potential prison break, I think that might be the case. I can see Hank or maybe Albert or even Fuches having some type of connections to get him out, and going back to Albert, maybe he knows a special black ops crew that can break Barry out of, like, if they're driving him to prison and we get like this Sicario action sequence, which we know this show does great action. Maybe they break Barry out of like the prison transfer bus and he's on the run from there. I don't know. I hope to get that. But let me know your thoughts and theories of what you all hope to get in season 4, which again, I hope and I think we're going to probably get season 4 come next year, 2023. But let me know your thoughts on all that. Wrapping up this video, let me share with you all my rankings, starting off with just my kind of overall thoughts of the season, which I thought I did a phenomenal job of highlighting its themes of forgiveness and can you be redeemed from your past and being the best version of yourself. And I can't go without mentioning the incredible arcs that we got for Gene, Sally, Hank, and of course Barry, seeing all of them fighting for their lives in this finale. finale and Gene getting his justice for Janice and Barry's past finally catching up to him was so beautifully done. And I can't stress enough how special this show is, and where I believe this is one of the few shows that not a single episode is not either good or absolutely great. Bill Hader, not only as an actor, but as a director, is some of the best direction I've seen all year, and I cannot wait for season 4. Let's get into my rankings here, as I want to rank the seasons. And for me personally, I think season 2 is still number 1, but it's followed by this season and then led by season 1, which I still think all 3 of these seasons are absolutely fantastic. But let me know your rankings in the comments. Moving on to my favorite finale out of the 3, I got to give it to season 2, followed by this finale, and then of course season 1. My favorite episode of season 3 has to go to episode 6, which was titled 719N, and then wrapping up the best directed episode by Bill Hader this season, which I still give that title to 710N, followed up by Candy Asses, and then this episode here. So my thoughts on the finale, my thoughts on the season, my hopes for season 4, my ranking of the 3 seasons, the episodes, the finales. You got all that in this video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, thank you for joining me last night on the watch along. Thank you for being part of this journey for the last 8 weeks. Your boy still covers a lot of other shows, so if you love me covering HBO, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, I cover a lot of variety of shows. So if you haven't already, continue to stay on this family here. If you haven't already, make sure you like, share, comment your thoughts in the comment section, and more importantly, come and join the community by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe, because it is hot as hell outside. So stay warm, stay hydrated. We'll catch you all on the next breakdown.
Yeah.